Shut up, Evan. There are people who grew up feeling free in their bodies, who suddenly, when they start to work in a field like this, their entire life becomes about like nips and tucks and areas. And obviously everyone has to do what they have to do to feel happy in their bodies. But like, for example, this week I was shooting and there was a veritable wall of paparazzi facing Miss Natalie Portman. And I happened to be in the line of fire. They were not there for me, but I did appear. And I had a moment where I was like, I am wearing a massive baggy Uniqlo t-shirt and some very unfortunate boxer shorts, but that allows me to do my job comfortably during the day. And the fact is it's okay for people to see a photo of a woman just doing her job in the clothes she's comfortable doing her job in. But were that my area of obsession, like those pictures could have taken me down for 2 months.
And then all of a sudden you're waking up and instead of focusing on directing the film, it's what am I wearing to set today?
That's exactly it. And I realized very early in my run on Girls, because we had some paparazzi engagement around then. Famously, one of them screamed at me, "You're no Sarah Jessica Parker," once.
That's an honor.
Is it? I went, thank you. Like, for some reason, I did something to annoy him, and he said, "You're no Sarah Jessica Parker." And I went, "You're right. I never will be." And he's still around, and I see him all the time, and I just think, thank you. Thank you for that. But that feeling of knowing that your image would be replicated and that people would have things to say about it, I mean, that part's wild to me, because like, in what world would it ever occur to you or me to go online and be like, I hated this woman's directing shorts? That's outside of our like field of interest. But if you become enslaved to the idea of your image, the pleasures that you take from what you do will disappear.
Absolutely. Hi, Lena.
Hi, Evan.
How are you?
I mean, delighted now that I'm here with you, one of my favorite writers, podcasters, critics, voices of our time. It's always fun when you get to sit with someone of whom you are a fan, because you are both in the experience chatting to them, and you're also getting to have that like gleeful, childlike, I'm seeing how the cookies get made thing, and it's a joy.
Well, thank you. I really like that we've established this voice message relationship. And it's such where I feel like we're able to breeze through so many topics, and voice notes allow for intonation, allow for a humor that can't happen via text. And I feel like we're able to cover so many topics, from world events to random celebrity goss to catching up in each other's personal lives.
To you giving me a dose of what's happening on Survivor, which is something that I really like to get third hand.
Well, you famously thought I was going to film Survivor.
That was? So you left me a voice. What I loved is we started chatting, we were texting, and you took the daring leap of saying, I'm jumping to voice memo.
Daring.
Huge relief for me, because suddenly I was like, we're free.
And huge risk for me. Thank God you received it.
A risk that paid off in spades, because every time I get a voice message from you, I'm like, I'm going to the bathroom at work to savor this humorous romp through present day culture. But you said, you gave me a list of things. Oh, I'm going to be going here, then going, Survivor's starting. And I thought, and if you think about it, you would be an incredible Survivor contestant. I mean, I don't know what your relationship to the wilderness, to the wilds of the island would be, but you would be unbelievable in human-to-human gamesmanship. And it seemed like a natural next step from your interests. I thought, he's headed off to Survivor. And then I was like, are we supposed to send him? Is it like summer camp? Do I send you a care package? Do you need trail mix?
Yeah.
Is it like when my mom sent me candy inside of a tampon box? Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. And then you assured me that you were not, in fact, going to be on Survivor.
No. I think perhaps my enthusiasm for the game makes it such where that when I'm speaking about it, I'm speaking as a we, but it's a they.
You're speaking as a we. And by the way, if you were asked to do Survivor, what would you say?
I would say no. I would love to do it if there weren't cameras present. I don't have the desire to be on television in that sense, in a reality television sense.
Well, I also think like this is how I feel. We both love Traitors, obviously.
Yes.
And I feel like it's such a joy to watch. And were we in a situation where like a bunch of us could just jump into a house and play Traitors, like I'd take it as a spring break.
Absolutely.
Any day. But I do not want cameras capturing moments where I'm hungry, dirty, scared, trying to manipulate somebody that I formed a friendship with. I mean, nightmare.
Yeah.
If I did traders, I'd want to be a fly on the wall of the house or play it with a group of friends in like a gleeful way that didn't have massive consequences.
I feel like we could make that happen at some point.
I did have a traders dinner party, and I have to tell you, we went around, someone was playing, it was when it was just UK based, so someone was playing Claudia Winkleman. They came and whispered in my ear, "You are a trader." And within 20 minutes, I had developed one of the most piercing migraines of my life. The stress was too much for me to take. Like suddenly, I was looking around at these people that I cared about. There was one guy who was an easy kill, but he was a friend of a friend. We didn't really know each other. My friend Monica started to, when she was accused of being a traitor, which she was, started to cry and said, "You guys are excluding me because I'm Canadian." Brilliant move.
Yeah, really good.
So I just, at a certain point, had to go, "I'm sorry, I'm going upstairs. I know this was my idea, but I couldn't take the heat and I have to get out of the kitchen."
Wow. What's funny is that if I were in the Claudia position, I would make you a traitor.
Would you really?
Yeah.
Because you think I'd be good at it, because you think their hijinks would ensue?
I think hijinks would ensue.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. So for me, I have a strategy laid out for how I would play Survivor, which is I would find all of the MAGA people and I would link up arm in arm. I feel like you want to go and link up with the people that you would be most likely not to in society. And I would form genuine connections with them. I would try and find everyone who I wouldn't vibe with and form an authentic vibe.
And then once you form the authentic vibe, do you think they would be protective of you in a special way that would lead to success?
That's the hope.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, do most people who step into the Survivor house have a sense of like game strategy before they go?
Well, I love you calling it the Survivor house. It's famously played on an island.
They don't have a house.
Yeah.
The Survivor
house.
The Survivor log.
Yeah,
that
it's
they
kind
sit
of like
on.
Summer House, but yeah, on
Yeah.
an island in Fiji. Wait, so do they famously have what?
Do they? Because I have to admit, like, I have not watched whole seasons. I've watched highlights, reels of Mike, obviously Mike White. It's a joy. Parvati, who I'm obsessed with. And then my mother's friend Jane's boyfriend Jonathan was famously in the Survivor house.
Jonathan Penner.
Correct.
Icon.
So Jonathan Penner, Survivor icon, has entered my mother's friend group. So then I had to watch, obviously, all the highlights of Jonathan. And like my mother was walking down the street with him and people were literally screaming at him like Jesus was walking down the street. And
I was one of the people screaming.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great to know. So Jonathan Penner seems like a great boyfriend, seems like a great man.
He does. I don't know what your schedule is like and your media consumption and, you know, your appetite at the moment for it, but Survivor 50 is premiering next year. I think that could be a good gateway real-time season.
I would love that, and I'd love if as it goes, you and I could talk through it and
Absolutely.
you could let me know sort of where it's harkening back to Survivor lore. Like
Yeah.
because I really love the lore. And is Mike White part of Survivor 50?
He is.
Which, like us, he considers a reality show to be a relaxing vacation. It's so exciting.
Wild, yeah.
And do you think that, I mean, I know he's a friend of yours, but does Mike go in with a game strategy?
I think it's complicated on a returning player season because there's a lot of lore around pre-gaming with the
Yes.
very first All-Stars in
Yep.
2004.
This is incredible to watch.
And so there was famously some pre-gaming that happened that ended up having deep ramifications in the game.
Got it.
And I think there's a level of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because if you're one of those sort of honorable players that doesn't want to pregame, you run the risk of everyone else pregaming.
Yep.
Whether it's kind of like, you know, democracy. It's sort of like if the Democrats don't go in and fuck with democracy the way the Republicans are, at the end of the day, it's like we kind of have to fight fire with fire. It's
Yes.
one of those situations.
So if you're going in and you're like, I'm not that kind of player.
Yeah, I want to play ethically, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but if they're not playing ethically, you're playing ethically as void.
And then the only people with an ethical heart are off the island
Off
in
the
2
island.
seconds.
Yeah, that's why I'm linking up with MAGA.
Okay, I love this. And also, in the process of linking up with MAGA, you change hearts and minds.
Wow.
You come out and they're like, I made friends with this amazing person. And the hope is they go, but probably what they would actually say is, he's different than the other ones. I'm still pretty mad.
Probably, but I like that we could have the hope that
Yes.
maybe
Yes,
maybe
yes,
a
yes.
bridge was formed.
That's exactly right.
For people that don't know, so our friendship is such where we've become IRL friends over the last couple of months,
Which has been a joy.
but our lore begins in 2019.
Yes, it does.
Because we had a few back and forths back when Twitter was a place where you could, you know,
Have a humane back and forth.
Yeah.
And I was always delighted by your voice and I was always like, that one. Like, You know, when you recognize like someone's, back in the days when I was on Twitter, you like recognize someone's icon and every time you see them pop up, you just get a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. We were on that kind of terms.
Wow. And you were creating art at that point, and you had done a series of, I believe it was 8 portraits, one of which featured a drawing that you had done of Kate Moss.
Yes. I was making a lot of watercolors at that moment. It was kind of like post girls. I feel like it's a bit stereotypical to like have your life blow up and then decide you're going to do arts and crafts, but that's where I was.
Yeah.
And I was really into painting, and I became obsessed with also Kate Moss, longtime obsession, but it really rose to the top. And I started making paintings of Getty images of Kate Moss in altercations with paparazzi. Not physical, but just looking irked in some way, looking self-protective. And you then
Messaged you. I was like, can I have one? You said yes. I think it arrived like 6 months later.
That's too long.
I come home. There's a giant Tom Brown bag hanging on my door handle from my East Village apartment.
Oh my gosh! There she is.
There she is.
And I have to tell you, I gave you my favorite one.
It's my favorite one.
Thank you, because it was the only one that had the Getty Images tag.
It's perfect. And I brought it today because I have it hanging in my apartment, but there's nothing that says that it's yours, that you made it. So I have a Sharpie for later.
This is divine. So yeah, you were, and by the way, the rest of them are all still in my storage.
I thought you were giving them away.
Well, I said, does anyone want a picture of Kate Moss? And I think you were the only one who said, yeah, I do. HBO had done some kind of gallery activation where they were asking like HBO talent to share work. And so the reason it took 6 months is it was like hanging in a strange corner of like a corporate HBO activation. And the minute it came down, had your address, into the Tom Brown bag she goes, over to your house. And I don't know, there wasn't the appetite for them I thought there would be, but it really meant a lot to me that she's with you.
She's with me. She's up in my apartment. She means so much to me. So thank you. And I'm glad that's sort of the basis with which we formed our friendship. I feel like it's important lore.
And then it was interesting because you were obviously already a brilliant voice. Your Buffy book came out. What year did your Buffy book come out?
2022.
So then I followed that. I read. I was enthused. And then even though I'm sort of secondhand on Instagram, every meme I was sent that someone thought might amuse me happened to come from you. And I thought, that's a warm feeling. That's my friend. And then we had a sort of like blind date organized by a mutual friend, Dolly. And it was one of those things that could have gone for an hour, but went for 4.5. And it felt like one of those moments where everything that tickles your brain, someone else is bringing to the table. Yeah.
And we really went in that night.
Oh my God, did we go in or what?
Yeah.
To the point where I feel like Michael, who was my business partner who was with me, was a little like, Lena, you're going in a little hard. Like you're like, this is a new friend. Maybe hold it back.
Well, but it's interesting because making friends in your 30s is challenging because, you know, we have our lifelong friends. We have the friends that we form at college. This isn't true for everybody. I can speak for myself, but my lifelong friends, college friends I made in my early 20s going out. Yeah. And that's sort of like the friend group. And then you meet people over time, but I think we're more discerning of the people we allow into our lives in our 30s. And we're also starting with 30 years of life experience to catch them up on and decide which version of us do we want them to know. And then as the friendship forms, how much of the past versions of ourselves do we want to bring them into, fold them into?
Absolutely. And how much of your sort of, speaking of lore, like how much of our formative experience, formative trauma, understanding of the world do you want to share? I remember I transferred colleges the year after, between my freshman and sophomore year. And I remember having this strong feeling like I can become a new person. Like I can arrive. I left school with mousy brown hair and I arrived with a bleach blonde mullet. Like I left school as a kind of anxious virgin and I can arrive as a gal in a crop top. But then you start to realize wherever you go, there you are. And the version of yourself that's sort of been rebranded, you'll always go back to the kind of little child inside. And what I loved was that it felt easy through our conversation, through our shared interests, through our pop culture fascinations, to connect to who you are now and also to have a sense of who you've been. And the people that I love most and are people who were also pop culture obsessed. I'm going to use a word that is at times contentious. I personally love the word nerd. Like, I think being a pop culture nerd to me is the recipe for a fascinating adult.
Yeah.
And every time a friend tells me, oh, I'm a little worried about my kid, all they do is stay home and read, or they are obsessed exclusively with manga or whatever, I think that's actually, to me, the recipe for a compelling adult.
Yeah, more of that, please.
Only that.
You stay home and read? Thank goodness.
Like, that's my fantasy. If my child doesn't stay home and read,
yeah.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
No, it's actually interesting. In season 1, episode 2 of Girls, Hannah admits that she hate reads a book.
Listen, ladies, a tough love approach to the tough game of love.
Okay, I'm going to admit that I've hate-read that book.
Look at this transition here.
Yes, amazing.
What is your relationship with hate watching in general?
That's an incredible question. I think that probably when I was younger, probably when I was Hannah age, I had more of a relationship to it because you don't quite understand how quickly life is moving and how fast it's passing you by. And now, like, I don't believe in guilty pleasures. If something's giving me pleasure, then I think it just is what it is. It's beautiful. And the experience of reading something to have a kind of like reaction full of bile to it feels like it's a waste of all these beautiful hours in which we can make art. Like, I'm very interested by people who finish an entire show just to kind of narrate all of its flaws or watch a movie full of rage. Like, if I'm watching something, it's because it's giving me either a window into something that I want to understand or a vacation from the pressures of life. Of course, sometimes we turn things on and it's like a car wreck in slow motion and we can't turn our eyes away. And it does happen. I'm no saint. But in general, I think that I now have an understanding of like how fleeting life is and that I want to fill it with things I love. I feel like something that's interesting about you is that you watch things that are considered low culture, but you approach them with a high culture lens. And that is one of my favorite sort of like areas of study.
When you say that, it makes me think about like early Real Housewives. Like, I'm talking about, back when it was sort of in its more verite era.
Yeah, it was almost gritty.
Yeah, and there were a lot of moments that truly compelled me as character studies of individuals. I think that we're definitely in like a sort of more meta era of reality, but what really captured me about reality television at the beginning, which I think is sort of like often given that title of like lowbrow entertainment, was that I, early Survivor, early Housewives, just that grit as you're speaking to, and also seeing these versions of characters I'd never seen before. I think about Richard Hatch on season 1 of Survivor, and it's like, you contrast that in the media landscape where it was like, Will and Jack, these two versions of gayness that existed. There were others, but more or less.
He was like a Machiavellian homosexual. Like,
yeah.
That was, we had sort of only been allowed to see gay man as sassy best friend.
Yeah.
And gay man as sort of strategic hellhound did feel fresh.
Absolutely. Groundbreaking.
It's also interesting. I think one of the reasons that certain writers have an allergic response to reality television, certain people, is because actually it is, and this is one of the biggest debates that my husband and I have, because he'll say, I'll be watching reality TV and he's like, why are you filling our home with this nonsense? And I feel like reality TV, especially in its first iteration, before people started to understand that it was a vehicle in which to get famous, because we didn't realize reality TV was going to turn people into brands. So people were going on with a different set of intentions. That to me was like, it was feminist, it was queer-centric. Like, it was a space in which women, queer people who were not usually like dominating the mainstream could really have a voice. And I also feel like it threatens writers, because sometimes I watch reality TV and I go, if I was able to write this, I mean, those are some of the most perfect phrasings known to man. Teresa saying prostitution whore.
Prostitution whore? You are f***ing engaged 19 times? You stupid bitch!
Like, no writer is brilliant enough to put those two words together. It had to come from the id of Teresa.
You are brilliant enough to see that and to bring it into too much.
What? I just don't get why they turned Teresa into a meme, because it's like, she is a prostitution whore. Teresa is right. This is what we culturally do to women.
You called me in to watch prostitution whore, Danielle Staub and Teresa Giudice.
That event took place, well over a decade ago. You realize the value of it, and you realize that how do you take that and sort of collage it, right? And then bring it into too much.
Thank you. And I think it's important. Like, I knew the characters on that show were women whose brains would be totally re-scrambled and who would get such pleasure from watching that together. I could never have known the incredible intonation with which Rita Wilson would say Teresa Giudice. That was, how are we supposed to say it?
I believe Shia said it 2 different ways over time. So I believe it's both correctly pronounced Giudice and Giudice.
I was always saying Giudice. When Giudice came out of Rita's mouth, it was the hardest I've ever had to try not to laugh on screen.
I understand.
And also because in another world, Rita Wilson, she's a brilliant actor, brilliant singer, brilliant performer. In another world, I can see her also being a brilliant Real Housewife. Like, if we were to do Real Housewives of Hollywood, and there's no world in which Rita wouldn't be our fearless leader.
Matriarch, for sure, yeah.
There's no world that she wouldn't be the one who everyone else was coming to, who held the pain of the entire cast. So when she did it, I just thought, during the writer's strike, obviously it was a time when a lot of us were able to put our pens down and focus. I was taking in, I was knitting and taking in 10 to 15 episodes of reality television a day. It was also the moment of obviously the great Sandoval scandal.
Yeah.
And I became obsessed, and I've never said this publicly. I literally became so obsessed that I thought, what can we do while the writer's strike is down? We should do a reenactment of the reunion in which Ariana confronts Tom and then takes Rachel/Raquel to town with trained actors. So we should basically create like a mini movie in which actors treat this as canon and get up and perform it with all the passion and virtuosity of Shakespeare. I went so far as to abuse Andy Cohen's contact information to pitch him the idea. I think he is obviously a master of understanding what his brand needs, and maybe it wasn't that in that moment, but I want you to know how far I took it.
Yeah.
That I was like, it might be my duty on earth to like I kept being like, Andrew Scott is Tom Sandoval. You know, Jennifer Lawrence is Ariana. I sounded like someone who was having a break with reality and thought I was Jesus. That's how obsessive I was.
I don't want you to fully let that go. I think it's maybe like a shelved idea.
Can you see it?
I can see it.
And the question is, there are other reality TV events that could be.
Yeah, I think you maybe like find some of the great moments in reality because as we're saying this, I'm like, how does Rita Wilson slot in? So that's kind of top of mind for me.
She's Lisa Vanderpump.
I love it.
Like that's
with
what
the
we're
dogs.
working with.
Yeah.
And maybe by speaking it here,
we
Andy
can.
will realize he was extremely respectful and I think understood where I was going, but probably had other things at the top of the list. But I was like, I want to take these words and direct them like it's like really serious theater.
Yeah.
And I want to treat these characters the same way that people go, oh, I feel so lucky I get to play the role of Lady Macbeth. It's like, what an honor to play the role of Ariana as she screams. What did she call Raquel again? From Harry Potter? She called her a...
Dementor.
She said, you're a Dementor. I know you love Harry Potter. You're a Dementor. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a non sequitur to our conversation about hate watching, And Just Like That just aired a recent episode, and I already wanted to speak with you about And Just Like That because I've always been curious about your relationship with the Sex and the City and Just Like That universe. I mean, obviously, from the first episode of Girls, Sex and the City is mentioned, but also just thinking about all of the ancillary press around Girls at the time, it was sort of entered into the Matrix as a successor to Sex and the City.
I was obsessed with Sex and the City as a teenager. There was a New Year's Eve, I believe when I was 17, where my mother and I just stayed home and watched the marathon. It was and is so important to me. And I think the reference in the pilot was as if to say, we know that this is not, we're not covering new ground.
You know, you're funny because you're definitely like a Carrie with like some Samantha aspects and Charlotte hair. That's like a really good combination.
Oh, thank you.
I think I'm definitely a Carrie at heart, but like sometimes Samantha kind of comes out. And then, I mean, when I'm at school, I definitely try and put on my Miranda hat.
What we're talking about is the generation of women who saw Sex and the City and thought that New York was going to offer a specific kind of vision. Will and Grace was that for me too. Like I remember being in 8th grade with my best friend and being like, and we're going to get an apartment like, you know, Will and Grace, and we're going to have a very large sectional sofa. You have a vision of what New York has to offer, oven full of shoes, endless buffet of boyfriends. And then once you actually start to enter the adult world, you see the aspirational fantasy aspect of that. And so it was important that we had a character who was saying that aloud and saying, I think it's always important to pay respects to your elders. Like on Too Much, the credits are modeled after Mary Tyler Moore, because for me, watching Mary Tyler Moore on Nick at Night was so formative. And this very specific kind of woman in her 30s trying to rebuild her life after a failed relationship could be traced back to Mary. And that was the same with Sex and the City and Girls. And so I always wanted them to understand, the girls, the women, the creators, to understand we're not here saying we've created a new genre. We're here saying we tip our hats to you. We're remixing something that you guys are the architects of. Yeah.
So kind of closing the loop on the relationship between Girls and Sex and the City, you were shouted out on the most recent episode of And Just Like That. Charlotte is setting up at her gallery opening and tells her assistants, quote,
"This was created by a woman artist in the 80s, a time pre-Lena Dunham when women were not celebrated for being this messy."
Did you catch the shout out, and what do you make of it?
So I'm not caught up. I will be after this week. It was actually my friend Russell, who's here with me now, who caught that you memed it.
Had to.
He scrolled right through and showed me. And of course, like the idea that would come out of our dear Charlotte's mouth is surreal. And also, whenever you hear that someone's mentioned you in a show, you suck your breath in for a moment, because you don't know, is the joke gonna sting? Is the joke gonna feel nice? Is it my proudest? This is a very proud one. I was obviously very proud for a White Lotus shout out. That was huge.
How is an HSP?
What is that?
Oh, highly sensitive person.
That's not real.
Mom, it's a clinical diagnosis.
Really? Who's her physician? Lena Dunham?
And then, what were you gonna say?
No, you go.
For me, BoJack Horseman was a big one too.
Oh, hold up. You took your bath together?
Lena Dunham takes baths with her friends and no one gives her shit.
Because you were going to mention.
I was going to mention the comeback.
Oh, and then, New Girls, huh? Now, this one, she's real special, that Lena Dunham.
It was huge. And also, like, the influence Valerie Cherish has had on me can never be understated. Like, you said in your newsletter, Valerie Cherish is back to save the world. Like, she has come like a superhero when we need her most, strapping on that red wig like a cape. She's here. And it's always an honor when a show that you respect mentions you in a context that's not totally, I don't care if it is, as the Brits would say, takes the piss out of me a little. If it's funny, I'm in. And just like that was extra surreal, because it feels like our show spoke to the Sex and the City universe, and we didn't know that they would then come back and speak back to us. Yeah. And so that's a dialogue that's very thrilling. Yeah.
You know, Girls shot in New York, Sex and the City shot in New York, and Just Like That shoots in New York. You're currently shooting a film in New York. Yeah. You are a New Yorker, born and raised. Yeah. What is your relationship with the city today? Obviously, you moved to London for a period. Now you're back. It's a different city.
It's a different city. I'm back. So I've come back for the summer to shoot a film called Good Sex with Natalie Portman, Mark Ruffalo, Rashida Jones. It's a beautiful cast. I actually think I love New York best when I'm shooting, because it's a way to, like, something I've found challenging as a New Yorker is I am not someone who thrives on chaos, and you never know what the streets of New York are going to serve you. And there's something about a movie set, which is this world in which everybody has a job to do. Everybody knows what it is. We're working in unison to make it happen. and it sort of buffets you from the intensity of the city. So, of course, I mean, I remember once we were shooting deep in Brooklyn at night, and I was sitting in my director chair watching Adam Driver run back and forth, and suddenly a man came over and just stuck an anaconda in my face and ran away. Literally just like shoved an anaconda in my face and ran away. And I remember dropping a bottle of coconut water, hearing it shatter, my own scream sounding like it was somewhere far off. But that's also like the joy and pleasure of shooting in New York, is you never know what's going to happen. The other day we were shooting in Washington Square Park, and a man sat down facing Natalie and Rashida, began to unpack a picnic, watching them as if they were television meant just for him. And then I walked over and went, "That was an incredible take, cutest girls in the world." And I heard him go, "I have to agree wholeheartedly." And I went, "Okay, that's lunch." But those are the moments where you go, this city gives back.
Yeah.
It has its own. And I think my relationship to it now is that now that my life isn't all New York all the time, I have a deep appreciation of what the city offers. Even now, we're on Canal Street. As a kid, walking across Canal Street at 8 a.m. in the morning to get to school, bobbing and weaving like it was a game of Grand Theft Auto, was a challenging part of my day. Now, walking, I appreciate the intensity, the mayhem, knowing that I will have periods of retreat from it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I do really notice the difference, because the last time I lived here was pre-pandemic. It reminds me of the city I lived in as a little kid, like when David Dinkins was the mayor, pre-Giuliani cleanup patrol. Obviously it's alarming and upsetting to see how many people are not being supported by the social fabric. But it's an interesting thing to see that New York City goes in these phases, and there's moments where it feels more sleek and corporate and moments where it kind of returns to its roots, and it's a living, breathing entity.
What were you going to ask me?
I was going to ask, like, do you feel like you're a true New Yorker? Does that feel like it's your identity?
I have so much love for where I came from and pride in being born and raised in Pittsburgh that although I do feel like a New Yorker, I reject it because I want Pittsburgh representation. New York gets enough already, so it doesn't need me on its team. I think I'm better served with Andy Warhol and Christina Aguilera and Sharon Stone and Jeff Goldblum repping for Pittsburgh.
It's such a beautiful list to be a part of. Pittsburgh is an incredibly cool city. And I also have to say that when I was younger, every boy that took me down, made my heart just splay open, was a boy in a bike messenger hat from Pittsburgh.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. With like a carabiner on the pants and like a pair of checkered Vans. It was just always like a little Pittsburgh bike punk ready to break my heart.
Those
you
fuckers.
gotta respect.
Yeah.
You gotta respect.
Yeah. Now, can you explain for people that don't know, like myself, we love seeing New York depicted in cinema and on television, and yet it seems increasingly like we don't really get many films and television shows that actually shoot here. I understand it's expensive, but like I also don't understand. Can you explain why New York is not easier to make art in?
It's a great question. I mean, we know New York's an expensive city. It's an expensive city to live in. It's an expensive city to feed yourself in. And it's an expensive city to get around. And a film crew is this like massive living, breathing organism. And if you're doing it right, you have to be caring for each person, making sure that they're fed well and they get to work safely. And also, New York is in the process of passing some new tax laws around filming, but it has been a challenging period of time. And I think they're really working to bring filming back to the city. When I was doing Girls, I mean, we were constantly running into other crews. When I was shooting Tiny Furniture, we were shooting on Canal Street over at a little bar called Clandestino. You may know it, all the way on the east side. And we were just like a little student film, and we lost a cable, and the crew of Blue Bloods was next to us. And like the gaffer was like, "Here, kids, take mine." Like it was this beautiful. We used to have on Girls, we used to have a girls softball team. I wasn't on it. I was going to bring down that average, but they were playing Blue Bloods. They were playing The Americans. They were playing, you know, the cast of what was the show with Deborah Messing? The Adventures of Laura, The Dreams of Laura.
Oh God, hold on. It's on it's because there's the New Adventures of Old Christine, Julie Louis-Dreyfus. No.
Louis-Dreyfus.
Deborah Messing, NBC.
Yes.
NBC girl.
Of course. Our NBC queen was on a show in which she played
Mysteries of Laura.
Mysteries of Laura.
Thank God that came to me. That
Thank
would have
you.
been.
We were playing Mysteries of Laura, the Michael J. Fox show. Like there was this camaraderie around being a New York show. It's interesting because increasingly I watch, as you said, films and TV shows set in New York where it doesn't look not like New York, but there's a blandness to that makes you go, maybe because they're avoiding this, they're in, say, Toronto, but they're avoiding the specificity of Toronto. And so what you get is these kind of hard to like fully pin down buildings that almost feel like they were created by AI. And I really pushed, we did 3 days on Too Much in New York, but it was so important to me that the New York stuff be in New York, even interiors, because there's just a way that like New York homes, New York streets, also when you're shooting, like you never know who's going to pass through the background. You never know what kind of like strange automobile will go honking by. And it just adds like a humanity that's really hard to replicate. And I feel like in my life, I am it's funny because for my day-to-day when I'm writing and living and being, I really love being in London, but I feel most at home in some stupid shorts on the streets of New York, filming in what feels like this big, messy family.
Can you walk the streets of New York?
For sure. I think that the fact that I'm just sort of like a 5'4" brown-haired girl in odd pants, there's a lot of us running around. There was definitely a moment at the height of Girls when like I was probably recognized much more than I am now. Now I would say what I love is like it's a very manageable amount, and the people who approach me are always a hilarious girl, a fantastic homosexual, just someone who I would want to hang out with in life. And that's divine.
Did you expect that fame would be something that wanes and comes up again, and that it would undulate? It's not sort of, I think most people sort of think of fame as like you either don't have it and then you work your way up and then you have it. But it sounds like as you've experienced, there's waves.
Well, it's interesting. Like both my parents are artists, and within the art world, they are very lucky to have successful careers that have allowed them to support themselves. But something I was really able to witness was the up and down nature of a creative life. Sometimes you make a group of work that creates a ripple and an impression. Sometimes you make something that you're really proud of, but it just doesn't penetrate. Like I almost feel like the culture, the zeitgeist has its own logic. And if you're always working to feed it, that's probably ultimately not that beneficial to your own creativity. So maybe too much so, I've always just decided I'm going to make what I want to make when I want to make it. There are certain people like Ryan Murphy, your pal, he's a zeitgeist genius, and he is somehow able to take his own unique, complex set of interests and the like hive mind and merge them and hit right at the moment that sort of something is blooming. That's not my skill set. And so I think that there are times when something that I make starts a conversation. There are times when it kind of comes and goes with a ripple, but I've always been very aware that like the work will find the people that it's meant for at the moment that it's meant to. Like I was in Judd Apatow, who's one of my best buds and also a real mentor to me. He made This Is 40, and it got on Netflix 10 years later, and suddenly people were mentioning the movie to me 4 times a week. And it seemed as though it's almost like when he made it, the millennials who loved his work hadn't yet caught up to it. And then once it was on Netflix, they were all getting married, having kids, and started to understand the experience the movie was about. And it found its audience years on from when it landed in theaters. And so there's like a patience you have to have and like a faith that if you made something you're proud of, it's going to meet its audience when they need it. But I feel lucky that my parents gave me such a beautiful example of just patiently existing in your creative life and doing what feels truthful to you?
So you're talking about that ripple, and you have this show Too Much right now that has made quite a ripple. And you were more or less out of public life for the last couple of years. And then by proxy of this show and then also filming Good Sex, you are thrust back into Lena Dunham is a headline, whether it be about the show, about something you say in an interview, like you are back in the spotlight. And I'm wondering how it has been for you adjusting to re-entering public life, perhaps by your own accord, but also very much by proxy of the work you make.
It's a really interesting question. It's hard because I'm not on Insta and Twitter scrolling, because I have a secret Twitter guru. I mean, it's no longer Twitter, it's X, and I'm not there. I'm not there anymore, guys. I left that party. But she will send me things that are applicable, but it's hard for me to feel whether something, I mean, of course, my aunts send me, you know, like 18 Jewish reasons to watch Too Much, right? That's their favorite genre of article. But I'm not always, it's hard for me to know when, if something is, if it's just the people that I know who are watching it, if the world is watching it. My biggest joy has been seeing how people have embraced Megan Stalter and the like deep pleasure they're taking, not just in her on the show, but in who she is in the gorgeous, glorious chaos of her interviews. I definitely had to take a deep breath and sort of like strap on my big girl pants, because I knew that after the time that I took away from, I was working that entire time. So I got the pleasure of work without the sort of slight acidity of what it means when you are in the world, in somehow have re-entered to whatever level people's brains. And I think also I really treasured that time, because it's a time when I got to catch back up with my own instincts, even though I tried to stay really true to my own creative desires through the process of Girls. It was hard at times, probably impossible, to drown out the noise. And I know that other gals on the show felt that way. It's been really interesting in recent years for Allison and Zasha and Jemima and I to look at each other and go, that was crazy, you guys. And because we didn't have a previous job to compare to, Zasha was the only one of us who had ever worked professionally. And she'd done Mad Men and she'd been in movies, but like for all of us, it was this kind of atomic boom that changed the nature of our lives. And so with this show, I just tried to be, honestly, to be appropriately self-protective. It's been a real blessing to be making a movie, because then you have a creative place to turn your attention every day, and you can't be sitting there kind of monitoring the dial of what people feel. The other thing which you would be able to speak to is the between streaming and shows being binged, the proliferation of sort of, it used to be there's 3 places that would run a review of your work. Now that's, I can't even count the number of places that have serious reviewers looking at things. And then, you know, Instagram didn't even start until after we'd shot the first season of Girls. So I feel like one of those women who's like, I got divorced and now I have to online date. Like, I'm re-entering a world that I don't totally recognize. And it's also a world where if there were, 200 things to watch on TV, now there are 200,000. And so you're sort of a student of these shifts, but in a way I was not monitoring them I consume TV and I consume media, but I wasn't quite as aware until I returned and went, oh my God, this landscape has really shifted.
Yeah. Well, and one of the distinct shifts that's happened is looking at the fact, Girls was released on a weekly cadence. Yeah. Too Much drops 10 episodes, the entirety of its first season in one day. Yeah. And I'm wondering what that's like for you, seeing everyone being able to experience the totality of your work. Some people are going to sit home that day, finish the show, be ready to react to the entirety of the body of work. Others are going to take weeks. It creates this sort of, we're all consuming it in different ways. I think there are positives and negatives. I'm curious for your thoughts on that change in the distribution model.
Well, it's interesting because you're exactly right. There's positives and negatives. The thing that was fascinating about the time that I was working at HBO was they were really putting out 3 to 4 shows at any given time. And if you liked HBO and generally trusted the programming, even if the first episode didn't compel you, you're going to give it a chance because Sunday is an event, it's HBO, you sit down with your family, you watch. Now, in this binge culture, I'm guilty of it too. You watch 7 minutes of something, you decide this isn't really jiving for me, and the ability to immediately entertain yourself means you're hitting next, next, next. So when people tell me they've watched the whole show, I feel insane gratitude because I know how easy it would be for them not to. And then also I'm also aware how easy it would be for people to just move on to the next thing. And I tried to be as aware of that as was healthy when making the show. Okay, we want the first 5 minutes to really be a thesis statement about what this show is and what it's going to offer, while at the same time not sort of shifting the way I write to speak to this new milieu. And so I want my employers to be happy. I want my producers to be happy. I want people who watch to be satisfied. At the same time, I don't want to be writing as if for like algorithmic success. So that's an interesting thought process I never really had to engage. And Girls was really allowed to have time to get cooking. Like we had time to really figure out our voice, get on our feet, make changes. And this is a very different experience, which is that you are sharing it, people are going in, and that's the experience they're going to have and you can't control it. What do you feel as someone who is so aware of the television landscape? What do you feel about the kind of, for example, you're so involved with White Lotus, that is this eventized viewing in a different way than Netflix. But then there's also deep joy when the full season of a Netflix show drops and I know that I'm going to be able to like snuggle into my bed and go there. It's like knowing that I have a bottomless frozen yogurt.
Yeah, who doesn't want that? I am a proponent of the weekly drop. I think if you look at the uptick in numbers from week to week for White Lotus, it kind of showed the fact that by having that week for the conversation to build around certain events, like, oh, he jacked off his brother, that had a week circulating, and then everyone comes in that wasn't previously watching the show, that it's like, I want to see the fallout of this event that everyone's been talking about. And I will say, too, it's like, I remember I woke up the morning after Too Much dropped, and there was already articles being like, here's what we want to see for season 2, having watched all of it. And I was like, I immediately felt behind. And I am such, especially with your work, I need to watch it more than once and not just all the way through. And then, so for instance, I've done episode 4 times, which I want to ask you about because I have a particular affinity for episode 4 that I finished it and then I was like, I knew I wanted to go back and rewatch it. And I felt like I had to push forward to stay with the conversation and not feel behind. I had to sort of exonerate myself from that thought pattern.
Firstly, thank you for your careful watching. That's the most meaningful thing in the world because, again, I know how easy it would be for you to blip forward. My parents and brother still have not watched it because they keep going, it's only been 8 days. And it's like, in this, they're used to sort of, at this point, one episode of Girls would have come out. They can catch up next weekend and they can go. And my mother told me that someone said the last episode was a doozy and she didn't want to admit that she hadn't seen it. So she kept going, it is. It really is.
Yes, and.
Yes, and. She yes-anded them hard.
Yeah.
But and also I have to say that pre the season of White Lotus, I received, I cannot say from where, a spoiler that someone was going to jack off their brother. And so every single week I would say to my husband, something really crazy is going to happen this week. And something crazy would happen. But then when it finally occurred and it was wilder than I ever could have dreamed.
It truly was.
Mike's the only person who could turn that into must-see TV.
It's true.
Deepest respect.
So episode 4, it's the party episode, right? And I think that one thing, and I picked up on this from your writing in a lot of your previous work, one of your many skill sets, but perhaps what I glom onto most about you is your ability to write and direct a scene where all of the characters come together in a room and you're able to create this symphony in which they're all being themselves, but they're forced to come up against everything that the other characters are that changes the way they react, and the temperature of the room just kind of goes in all these different directions. I feel like it's one of Meg's standout episodes at the party. There are other shows I watch that do party scenes, and I feel a sense of nervousness because the room feels empty, or I feel us going over and spending time with two characters and I'm like, well, but what's everyone else doing right now? It doesn't quite feel loud enough. It's really bright in the room. And when I watched that dinner scene, which kind of transforms into a party, I felt so, there's no other word to really than taken care of. You have this remarkable ability to take care of a group scene. And I'm wondering what goes into that.
Firstly, that means the world. They are my absolute favorite thing to write. They're my favorite thing to direct. And it's funny because I don't love a party IRL. I'm not a great partier IRL. Like, I am famous for making a French exit after 45 minutes. But I think the fact that when I am in a room like that, I am so overstimulated. I feel like I'm in a show and I'm hearing everybody's through lines, and it's so overwhelming to me that the only thing I can do is retreat to my bed and enjoy Teresa Giudice. But what I love about a party scene is exactly the thing you said, which is it's a moment when everybody bumps up against each other. And especially if you have a series of eccentric, at times self-involved, at times sort of wrong-headed characters, it creates this electricity. And the other thing I love just as a director about shooting party scenes is you get all these amazing actors in a room together for a week. The windows are blacked out. You're shooting day for night all day long. Like, it creates a kind of like light mania where everyone doesn't know what time it is. They don't know how long they've been there. And suddenly people's performances get so kooky in the best possible way. Like, one of my favorite girls' memories is when we shot episode 7 of season 1, the crackcident, when Shoshana accidentally has a crackcident.
And I'm high. And I feel like popping. Do your ears feel like popping?
Hey, look at me. You smoked a crack. You smoked just some crack.
Oh my God, don't tell my mom. Don't even tell me.
We were shooting nights in Bushwick in a warehouse for 8 days. We were getting picked up at 8 p.m., arriving home at 8 a.m., hundreds of background artists. At one point, a bunch of Bushwick hipsters came in and stole what they thought was beer. Joke's on them. It was non-alcoholic. But we, in the best way, started to lose our minds. And there's something that, like an electricity that comes from that. And I remember when we were shooting, there's a dance scene in the episode 4 in which Naomi Watts, Richard E. Grant, a bunch of other great actors danced to one of my favorite songs, Tap In, by our queen, Saweetie. It was like 10:30 in the morning, and they were basically like snorting faux cocaine, like snorting vitamin B off a silver tray and grinding on each other. And they were all so like bold, and they went so hard in order to make it feel true and elevated. It feels like the closest I'll ever get to like having my Lydia Tarr moment in conducting a symphony. Like, you have, and I love when you're looking at a frame, you're sitting in your director's chair and you have to go through and go, okay, is that working? Is that working? Those two back there don't quite feel real. It's like this, it's an amazing collaboration with your AD who's in charge of the background. And it feels like you're like painting with people in this wonderful way. So party scenes are a particular joy of mine. And there's a scene in the last episode that I won't spoil where we had basically our entire cast, supporting actors, main cast, all together for an afternoon. And basically it was like going through, and it was as if we were doing a kind of I don't know, like when we used to do like high school plays, and there was a moment where the entire cast comes out and they're all working in tandem. It has that level of like, let's put on a show, and I love that.
Lena?
Yes, Evan?
I hate that our time has come to a close.
I feel like we just got started.
I know. We're cooking. Before I let you go, is there anything that I didn't ask that I'm insane to not have asked?
It's an amazing question. I honestly just want our friendship to continue, our collaboration continue, wink, wink. Like, I love being around you. I love being in your world. And I just want to say, I love the seriousness and joy with which you treat television. Because to me, it is the highest art form, whether it is Our Girls on Roni or it's like a incredible French drama. To me, television is the medium of the people. It speaks to our time, and we need scholars like you who are going to lean in. And one of the first gifts I got my husband was your Buffy book, because he told me that he could not be with someone who had not seen Buffy.
And did you fix that?
Did I ever? We watched all of it together in the first 3 months. We watched all of it. And then our first ever fight was that he said, I think it's the most real depiction of a teenage girl ever brought to television. I said, it's very good. I'm obsessed with it. But have you seen My So-Called Life? Showed him one episode and he was not engaging. I was like, I just gave you everything for Buffy and now your girl give me nothinging me.
So for me with My So-Called Life, it's like I can't help but imagine if we'd gotten a season 2, a season 3. It's like My So-Called Life, delicious. Like it's one of the biggest unfulfilled prophecies that exists
in history.
It's very much like if any of the shows you loved were canceled after season 1.
It was a formative trauma. My dearest friend Matt Wolf, Russell's my dearest friend. Matt Wolf is my best friend. It's complicated, but Matt Wolf directed the Pee Wee Herman documentary. He's brilliant. And he was so shaken by the cancellation of My So-Called Life that first he did his bar mitzvah speech about it. And then he created a petition signed by thousands and thousands of kids. And his mission to get My So-Called Life reinstated ultimately got him interviewed by the local news. And while he's done a lot in his life, that might be the thing that I'm proudest of.
Wow.
But it's one of the great unfulfilled prophecies. And I think all the time that some of the work that I've done has literally been me. It was the first time I watched television and felt like it was speaking directly to me. And so I constantly feel like I'm just trying to hold up the Winnie Holtzman legacy. But now she's got Wicked. Ariana's holding up her legacy just fine.
Yeah, it's become a profitable legacy.
Yeah, she's doing great.
She's good. Okay, let's end on this. If there is one episode of Girls that you were to assign as homework for everyone watching to go home and watch tonight, where are we at?
That's an amazing question. One episode of Girls, homework for everyone tonight. You know, this isn't one that people bring up a lot.
That's what I want.
We're speaking about party scenes. One of my favorite days of directing in my life was episode 10, season 1, Jessa's marriage to Thomas John.
Dude, if I didn't know any better, I think she's getting married.
She's not getting married.
As some of you may have already guessed, we're getting married.
We are.
All the characters we've met over the season come together at this surprise wedding in which Jessa is marrying this like completely random financier, Thomas John, may he rest in peace, dead at 37. But it was one of the first, previous to that, I had always been directing basically 2 people against a wall. That was what I knew how to do. And it was like when my palette expanded, and it was also the first time I ever did a stunt. Adam Driver gets hit by a bus.
He sure does.
We got to yank him in a vest. He kept saying, go harder. It was just it was an amazing experience for me directorially, and I felt like I took a big leap up. And also, I just can't get enough of Jessa in that wedding dress, letting everybody know she's never been happier, which we all know that woman who's like, I've never been happier, celebrate me, divorced in 6 months. So I think I would tell people to check that out. And I love directing a wedding. So if you also like a wedding, you can watch Too Much too.
Fantastic. I like how much we've discussed Girls Season 1 today.
Girls, it's funny. It may be because I can't remember any of the other seasons. They've all blended together in some strange matrix in my mind. Season 1, very clear to me. I'm finishing a book right now, and my editor, Andy Ward, said, you put a lot about Girls Season 1. Do you want to kind of touch on the rest of it? And I was like, babe, I can't remember the rest of it, which is weird because usually I have the kind of memory where I could tell you where you were sitting in the room, what you said verbatim. Like, my mind must be protecting me in some way. Girls Season 1, I don't think it's a coincidence that was before the show came out. And so, in a way, my brain was like happy, free, clear, and innocent. And so I can remember every second of it.
Well, I'm going to remember every second of today.
Me too, honey. And I can't wait to write you a romantic note on the back of your Kate Moss picture.
I can't wait for that. I hope this is the first of many professional collaborations.
Me too.
For you and I.
I can't wait to drop by again and to do other things. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.